Hi, this is Gail, the Legacy Lady, and you are listening and or watching to Legacy After Dark. I am so unbelievably excited. I get to have Dr. Laura Roselle with me, and she is with Family Narrative Project, and I will let her talk about that. So tonight we're talking about storytelling and family history and getting into all of those things and what makes us so ridiculously passionate about talking to people, getting their stories, and encouraging families and individuals to not only talk about their family stories and talk about their own stories, but also to write them down, record them, and leave them in something that other people can consume and get it out of their brains. So, Dr. Laura, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much, Gail. I'm just so excited to be here and just to have this conversation with you because we both love this topic so much. So I'm really excited to be here. And so I'm Laura Roselle, and I am one of four people who are involved in the Family Narrative Project. It's a young company, it's about 2 years old, and we came together to try to help people preserve and then share their stories. And we all came at it from different places, but the bottom line is we just think it's to just to share those stories. So that's what we're about. I'm really excited to talk to you about it today. And let's get started.
Oh, I'm really excited you're here. I just clicked some buttons. I was trying to show you up on the screen, can take myself off, but I've never clicked all those buttons. So if you're watching the replay or you just watched all of that, I did not do that on purpose. I apologize. I knew you were in the middle of something really wonderful.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
The total noob opportunity over here. Okay, so let's start with personal stories. So let's start with why you as a person, company aside, why did you start doing this?
So this goes back a little bit, and it's tied into family again. It's partly because my mom had some um, information about family history, and there were a lot of things we didn't really know. So I've done genealogy for a really long time, and just got deeper and deeper into it, and found all kinds of really, really interesting stories. And so I became the sort of that family history person for a lot of our family, and just I absolutely love it. So there was that component, that sort of thread through my life. And then my other job, my day job, if you will, is I'm a professor of political science. And what I've written about for years and what I've taught for years is political communication. And I've always studied how political leaders tell their stories and try to spin or to try to shape public opinion. So that's always been from the top down. And just really in the last, I'd say, 5 years or so, as I've been doing the genealogy and really getting into stories and storytelling, I really come to understand the incredible power of stories from the bottom up. So I actually have turned some of my research to the bottom up as well. And so those two things together, it's just like it's the perfect combination, that the interest in those stories, because I think that the world is changing so much, and the power of individual personal stories is more important than ever.
So do you I did not prep Laura with these questions. So if you want to skip, say skip. But the out of from the political science background,
Mm-hmm.
something that I just popped into my head that I was curious about was, do you have a favorite political storyteller? Like, do you have out of all the ones you've studied and the ones you've seen, like, do you have a favorite one or one that you were like, oh, they did a really good job, but gosh, they were terrible?
No, I mean, I guess I don't look at it that way, like, oh,
Yeah.
they were so much better, so or not. I guess I'm super analytical when it comes to that, and I look at sort of the components that go into creating the story. Um, I guess more importantly, maybe for me, was this notion that telling the stories helps change how people view the world.
Yeah.
And political leaders can do that, celebrities can do that, all kinds of people can help us change the way we understand the world, but we can do that too. And we can do that with our own stories. And that to me is incredibly powerful because, and I think it's something people need to think about these days and sort of reclaim their own story power, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So one of the things that we talked about before we got on, like a couple days ago, was how people perceive how their elders felt, how someone like how their family felt when they were
Mm-hmm.
growing up. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
So, um, that's part of the research that I'm doing right now, and we I'm at Elon University, and with a colleague who Jason Husser and I are working on some research, and we just did a big survey, an online survey of 1,600 people, over 1,600 people, and we asked them about how they perceived the family stories they heard about when they were growing up, and then asked them so many questions about all kinds of things from politics, but then also to how happy they were, sort of reported being, um, their opinions on all kinds of different things, even how they would put a history curriculum together. And so we had this big survey, and we haven't done all the data analysis yet, but just some of the just initial findings, sort of the descriptive findings, are super cool. They're just really interesting. Um, so one of the findings was first. One of the questions we asked was when people thought about the family stories they had heard, from when they were young through their life, how would they categorize them? Would they categorize them as mostly optimistic or mostly pessimistic or equally balanced? And actually, most people said equally balanced. So about 40, I don't know, right now it looks like we still have to clean some of the data, but about 46% said equally balanced. And then the next group was right below that and was optimistic. And then a significantly smaller group said that most of the stories they heard were pessimistic. So it was interesting to see that. I mean, because we know from other research that's been done that stories that, if children are told stories with ups and downs, and they actually have shown that those kids tend to be more resilient, and there are other kinds of psychological benefits for those children to understand that the family story they have, there are ups and downs. Things happen, and there are tragedies and there are triumphs, um, and that's the way life goes. Instead of having just you know, we had nothing, now we have everything, or we had everything and now we had nothing. So, um,
Or would you agree that never knowing that there were like, that someone was always pessimistic about everything and then someone is always optimistic about everything? I'm painfully optimistic,
so
but
am
I'm
I
also real.
actually.
Like I really like it's being honest with the kids of like, yeah, this right now things kind of suck, like, or
Right.
this feeling's gonna suck for a while, and like being able to have those real discussions about that maybe this moment was really cool, but there was really crappy things going on while
Exactly.
it was happening.
Exactly. And it's so interesting to me because um, we know this, though. We know how important family stories are
Yeah,
because they shape the way we initially view the world, and so that to me is really, really, it's absolutely fascinating. So it's both that kind of social science studying of it is
yeah,
really, really cool, but then also how do you help people share those stories, right?
Right.
Which is what you are really, you and I are,
Yeah.
we're both into, right?
Yes.
It's how do we help people who really want to share the stories, but maybe they don't know how to, or maybe they don't know how to find time, or whatever it is, right? Um, and hey, Jennifer, and Layla. Oh, yeah, Layla is great. She is homeschooled, and she's doing our online creating a recipe storybook class as part of her homeschool
Oh,
curriculum.
that is
It's
so
so
cool.
cool, and I can't wait to see it. Yeah. So, um, yeah. So we were talking about just trying to get people to into this, and find ways to do it. And that's what the Family Narrative Project came together to do. Because I maybe bring some of the social sciencey stuff in, but I've got 3 incredible partners, and a great thing is that we're all related. we're all family. So Kim is my cousin, my first cousin Billy's wife, and then Kim's sister is Darlene, and then Savannah is my daughter. So the 4 of us are all related,
And you're all female.
and we're all female.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, yeah. And so we got together. I was walking on the beach at a family reunion with
Yeah.
Kim, and she brought this up and said, "What do you think about this idea?" And I was like, "I love this idea. I love this idea." So, yeah.
So how do you think you said a little bit about bringing the poli-sci background into and the science of it, bringing it into family narrative. How sorry, I'm figuring out how I want to phrase this question on the fly. Um, and so how do you think that has helped you ask better questions, create a better experience,
Mhm.
and create something that is, from what I can tell, because I haven't been through it yet, I haven't been through your process yet, of being really intentional about how you get people to, first of all, start the journey, and
Mhm.
then cross that finish line of having actually finished the thing. Because so many people will say, oh, I'm gonna start a scrapbook, or I'm gonna
Right.
like do this, or I want to do this, and they start the thing, they get a couple pages in, and then you never touch it again. Actually,
Yeah.
I know.
I know, and I know that too. I mean, I've struggled with that with different projects too. I think everyone does. I think everyone struggles sometimes with getting some of those projects done. And what's so interesting, and Kim says this all the time. It's like these are the most important things we could be doing, is like
Yeah.
gathering these stories so that we have them and we're leaving them, and they tend to be the things that we don't put the highest on our to-do list.
Right.
And that's really an interesting, kind of disconnect. We know we need to do them, and we know it can be incredibly important, but we get caught up in the day-to-day things that we must do right now, and we think we can put it off. And part of it is, someday you're not, you can't put it off forever. And many people have gone through that circumstance where they have lost someone, and they just wish that they had those stories. So there are a couple of things that we do. And Darlene Odell, who's another partner, she has been running a writing group for years in Brevard, North Carolina. And she's just an incredible writer and an incredible facilitator of writers. And she writes just amazing writing prompts.
Yeah.
So I just finished today just loading up into Amazon the 3rd prompt book from her. We have 2 prompt books.
Yeah.
And then the 3rd one went up today, and she has 2 more coming out in the next couple of weeks. And these are amazing prompts. I just have to say, because they are amazing prompts. They're not, just sort of like very factual, because there's a reason to use some factual prompts, like what was your first car, whatever
Yeah.
that. And that gets good information down, but her prompts are like they just bring out stories. And so part of what we offer and part of what we think is important is to helping people who are maybe a little reticent about writing, or don't feel as um, maybe comfortable. And I have to say, I felt a little bit like that too, because the writing I tended to do was really analytical and really um, super technical or
Yeah.
analytical, and kind of that freeing sort of open writing about my feelings and family was harder for me. So the prompts really helped do that. Um, and we really encourage people, I think like you do too, with your 5 minute pieces, right?
Yeah.
To do things that are shorter
Yep.
and not sort of say, I'm just going to do a memoir and it's going to be everything and it's going to be, 300 pages.
Right.
That to me is like, just seems super overwhelming.
It is super overwhelming. As someone
Mhm.
who works with people to write their memoirs, and I've done ghostwriting for 10 years for people. It is, as the ghostwriter, it is very
Right,
overwhelming. So
right.
when I was thinking about legacy and all the different ways that I've worked with people over the years, it was definitely, how can I make this really daunting, terrifying process not so hard and
Exactly.
attainable at any level, like,
Mhm.
and trying to meet the storyteller where they are. So
Right, and
it's
that's what I love that about about all of your thing,
thank you.
the 5 minute stuff is amazing, and it is that idea that you can, if you have 5 minutes or you have 10 minutes, you can do this. You could come up with a plan to write bits, smaller pieces that are really important. And we do that with the recipe storybook course that we have online. It's just we say, okay, we're going to help you pick 7 recipes and we're going to help you write the stories that go with that.
Yeah.
And we're going to help you put it into Mixbook. And and I just found out today that if you the Mixbook is giving anybody in our class 50% off all of their orders.
What?
So yay.
Amazing.
So that's really super. So, and we have a special price in October. So if you've ever wanted to do that, we invite you to do it. But it is really just step by step, so that at the end you have something that you have finished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, oh
So
man, having that piece at the end is just really,
yeah.
really
Oh, I have
important.
I have mine. I have my recipe book.
Yeah.
It's right here. Can you
Oh,
see
so
it?
yes.
So yeah, so we have this tradition in our
Mhm.
house. You wonder why we all have mustaches on in this
Maybe a little,
picture.
maybe a little.
So, but we always, one of the, I thought, a very long-standing tradition in our family was to have the British crackers that you would pull open, and you would have the joke and the, well, we had crackers one day, and inside were mustaches, and everybody, they were really very cool. And so they, we all had those mustaches on, and for that photo, for that book. And then I picked 7 recipes that were my daughter's favorites.
Okay.
And so now, and I made a book for them. So they have the 7 recipes that are their favorites with us, with some stories that go with them and where they came from. But funny story about the cracker and the mustaches.
Yes.
I thought it went back like, generations. And my
Yeah.
mother was like, no, no, it was so and so, a neighbor down the street. We went to a party and they had this. And I thought that was really cool. So I just decided to start doing it.
Oh, well, and
But
I love that because you had this perception that it
right,
was like, what you remembered, what you
it's
thought
all
actually
right.
happened. You never asked.
Right.
And then, it came up through conversation or whatever. And um what was I gonna say? I love that she saw something she liked and decided she was going to include it in her traditions
Right. I mean,
and
and
bring that
that's
in.
the
That's
thing.
so, I think that part, as a parent, I think I'm probably having the hardest time with that, is finding
Mm-hmm.
traditions that um, fit what we're doing and things that we can fit in with what we're, that are meaningful for us as a family, and adopting new things. Um, I struggle with that.
Yeah, no, but it is a challenge,
Yeah.
to find the things that are going to work for your family, um, and that aren't, again, so big or so overwhelming that they seem like a burden instead of a joy, which they
Right.
should be. So, I mean, one of the things I did for my girls when
Yeah.
they were little was every Christmas I would take just a few photos, like maybe 10 photos, and I'd put them in a photo album and I'd, right next to them, and I'd put the photo album under the tree. And each year I'd add, 10 more. And
Oh,
so, um,
okay.
and when they were young, they'd be like, yeah, okay, nice, but um, after a while, they would go there first and they would look at their photo albums and be able to look at like the year in review and like mini review.
Yeah.
And they still love those. They
That's
still love
amazing.
those.
So do you still do that for them?
Well, it goes through when they graduate from college.
Okay,
So,
that's really good.
right. So, Olivia just graduated. My youngest just graduated from college this past May. So it's her first Christmas.
Congratulations. Big deal.
Yeah. So,
So um it's Savannah, right?
yeah, is the older. Yeah.
So how did it come to be that she became a partner and was working with you?
So, yeah, so it was really interesting. She was a teacher as well. So Kim was a teacher well, she was in the corporate world for a while and then became a teacher and was teaching writing,
Okay.
and was a brilliant teacher who could really get students to just realize their potential. And she had lots of students who had writing awards, and she just came to love it. Um, and so she was a teacher, and Darlene was a writer and a teacher as well. I've been a teacher. So Savannah was a teacher, and she got into it. She knew how excited I was about genealogy for a really long time, and she was interested in it as well. And she was also interested in and really really good at the design.
Okay.
And so she really stepped in to help us with. I mean, she designed our website. She designed our logo. She's just incredibly talented and creative, and got a great design eye. So, um, yeah, so we all just decided we would do it. And we all bring different things to the table, but we're having a great time.
I feel like I think that's probably one of the most important
Yeah,
parts. If everyone can show up and come to work and enjoy where they are and enjoy being together and enjoy what they're doing, I feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
you guys have made it.
Yeah, I know. It's very true. It's very true.
You've definitely
Yeah.
made it.
What are
So
your biggest goal? What are your biggest goals this year?
um
Yeah.
so for the end of 2019,
Mm-hmm.
my biggest goals actually, boy, if I say this out loud, I have to actually do it. I am actually doing it. I'm in the stages right now. But I've been doing legacy since fall of 2015,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been blogging on the website since January of 2016. And that's a lot of content.
Yeah.
So I had a wonderful, wonderful VA go through and actually copy the links and the titles of every blog post. And I now have a database of everything. And I'm going through and organizing everything and curating. And I'm pretty sure I have what I need to write 3 books.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I know that I'm at least going to get one out before
Mm-hmm.
Christmas. But I my audacious goal, as my dear friend Coach Jenny would say, is 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually have content. I have enough content for 3.
That's fantastic. And what
So
a great thing to get
yeah,
that out there.
to get that out there, because one of the things,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really that it goes back to what I say all the time, is that and what you guys practice too and talk about is that it really is done 1 page at a time.
Yeah.
So these 3 books, and I'm writing them in 3 months, but I've really spent the last 3 years writing them. It's just
Right.
organizing
Right.
um, and putting it all together. So it'll be a really good walking the talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm really excited about those. And the one of them will be on the 5 minute storytelling specifically, and restoring human dignity. And then the other one is, I think right now the working title is 52 Ways to Tell Your Story in a Year,
Nice.
which
Yeah.
is utilizing I did a legacy chat thing weekly for like almost a year,
Wow.
with just prompts and conversations on
Hmm.
Twitter and if you haven't jumped into Twitter yet on the genealogy community that's over there, it's intense. Um, and like they have Gen Chat. I have a couple of people lined up, at least 1 or 2 people lined up from that community to actually get on and have a conversation, just like we're doing today. So I'm excited about that. But so my goal this year is to really bring our community together, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that are in companies that are doing really incredible work with storytelling and supporting families, and everyone approaches it differently,
Right.
and everyone meets, like, I believe the right fit for every person is out there, and I love
Hmm.
that I have a beautiful list of people to refer people to who I'm not the right fit for.
Right.
And so one of my goals this through the rest of the year is to bring those resources. Like, it's one thing to write about them, I can link to them, I can shout
Hmm.
them out on Twitter, but to actually sit and have a conversation like this, I think is really an incredible way to showcase and talk about how everyone approaches things differently. So those
Yeah.
are my goals: books and conversations.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Because I think you're right. There are increasing numbers of people who really do want to tell their stories. They do want to both for themselves, right, and for their families now, but also for generations into the future to have. I mean, what would you give? What would I give to have, something that my great grandmother had written? It would mean, so much. So um, it's just, I think there are just sometimes some things that just stand in the way. And there are lots, but you're right. There are lots of people and there are lots of companies out there right now that are, stepping up to say, how can we help? And, um, whether it's with writing or whether it's with um, just, you know, time, helping you with time and helping you with,
Yeah.
sort of understanding that. I mean, the other thing that's really important is as people look at their stories, um, we construct stories. We make stories. And so part of it too is you write the story, but then you have to really look at it and say, why did I put all of these things in here? Like what is going
Yeah.
on here? And I've been thinking a lot about that. And I'm working on a book myself the working title is Story Power, but it is taking a lot of the research on stories and storytelling and trying to empower people to understand their own stories. And I was writing a section today, and it was really interesting. It was about how sometimes families can tell stories that are really, sort of negative or disempowering,
Yeah.
right? And like, oh, this horrible thing happened and it ruined everything.
Right.
And um, it's really important to look at the stories you tell too, in order to say, you know, the horrible things, the facts happened, but what else was there? Was there some kind of positive that came from that? What kind of lessons were learned from that? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So,
Now that I cannot wait to read it.
well, yay.
I'm excited.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we're at
Yeah,
we're at our time. That's
oh my
crazy.
gosh, zipped.
I know. I don't know how we got here already. Um,
Yeah.
so if someone wanted to get to know Family Narrative Project better,
Mhm.
where is the best place for them to start?
So the best place is our website for sure. And it is familynarrativeproject.com. And we have a blog with all kinds of blog posts. We have, you could get a PDF version of our writing prompts. Our online course descriptions and entry is there as well. And there's a lot of information on our website if you dig into that. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, so join us there. And certainly, if anybody has any questions, send us an email because we're super responsive, and we just really like doing this. So yeah, anybody who wants to send us a note, that'd be great.
I understand I answer
Yeah.
messages at obscene hours. I shouldn't
Yeah,
do.
yeah. Now, if you're in and around Burlington, North Carolina, Kim and I are doing a workshop Monday, October 21st, at the Women's Resource Center, and there's still some spots in there, and that information's on our Facebook page for sure. Yeah,
Oh, very cool. Thank
great.
you. Do you have any before I say thank you and kick you off? Do you have, do you have any parting thoughts or something that you I don't know, anything?
I would just encourage if anybody's listening to this, they've got to be interested in stories and storytelling, and you know, just to realize that no one can tell your story like you can. And how you are unique. Your life on this planet is unique, and your story is unique. And I'd encourage you to find a way to tell your story.
Oh, I love it. I
Yeah,
agree. I completely agree.
yeah.
Obviously. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you to everyone who was watching. If you're catching this on the replay, please feel free to leave a comment wherever you are. This gets put out to a couple different channels. I do check them. So feel free to put questions, comments in, and I will circle back. And yeah, so
Bye.
I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. And until I see you again, happy writing.